Hey, Tyler, can you hear me okay?
How's it going, Brandon? Yep.
Good. Well, thank you for hopping on at 5 o'clock, man. I'm sure you've had a long day.
Yeah, I actually just finished work.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Is now still a pretty good time for you?
Yeah, it's good.
Awesome. Awesome. And I also gave Jason a heads up too. Jason Haroldsen, the loan officer. Would you like him
Okay.
to hop on, or what is your preference?
It's up to you. I mean, either way. I know this is more of an informational thing.
Right.
I know next week I'm going to be talking with the Virginia guys doing the interview. So
Awesome.
I should know a lot more about if I'm interested, after next week.
Cool.
So basically 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll leave it up to you. I mean, I'm down for whatever. I just want to, you know, uh, you know, if there's more potential for something, that's when I'd be more comfortable, right? Obviously, because I don't want to waste people's time.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I thought this meeting was a good first step.
Yeah, I think it's great as well. So basically, with Jason, the advantage with him is he knows the numbers on the financing on the lending side. So, just based off some of the things that you had shared with me before about waiting until you had 20% down. So I know the answer to that, but I also know that he can explain it on the financing side in a way that I can't explain it. So there'd be a big advantage to having him hear that, just to try to game plan in case you do decide to stay here. And I know it's, excuse me, it's up in the air. Sorry, we got a little bit.
Oh yeah, no worries.
In my throat here. I know it's up in the air, but Jason and we're working together with a couple buyers right now. And so I gave him the heads up earlier today, and I just told him, I said, look, I got a really, a good person who was recommended from Mike Cloud, a good friend of mine. And I gave him the heads up. So he's not thinking like, oh yeah, Tyler's going to be ready to go right now and ready to go look. So he understands where it's at. And
yeah, I mean, if he wants to hop on, I mean, if you want, I don't know if that makes sense early in the conversation, just whenever he's free. But I mean, I'm open to it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure just before saying, oh, hey, here's Jason. He's a loan officer.
Yeah.
He's joining it. But what would be, I guess, most helpful for you? I know the question you left, and that's why I'd rather save that question because Jason's going to be able to answer it about should you wait until you have 20% down, as opposed to looking right now with roughly about potentially 10% down, right?
Yeah.
To that, as well as looking at the long-term potential, and also, I record the Zoom calls; it automatically does it, and this is just for you and I, so that afterwards we can play this back. Just like
Yeah, that makes sense.
home buyer workshop, and then you can also share it with your wife as well.
Yeah, the other dimension I thought of kind of after last week is, in the relatively near future, let's just say 1 to 2 years, I may be the only salary, right, for a few years because we are thinking of having kids somewhat soon.
Right.
So, so that's just one thing to factor into, the mortgage payment. It has to be something that my single salary could sustain.
That's a very important thing that you brought up right now, and it's also something very common with. We did the same thing as soon as my wife, she went to work for just a little bit right when my daughter was about 11 months, and I just shared with her, and luckily she got a real estate license, so she can kind of help me on the back end support with real estate. But she has her master's in teaching, so that's what she went to school for. That's where her passion is. But then it's like, okay, now we're getting a babysitter while she's out working. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we had to kind of game plan everything. So now it's based off of my income, and then off of, just having to restructure that. So I think that's an important thing to bring up, to make sure that you are getting a mortgage payment that, just with your salary alone, you're going to be good.
Yeah. So in other words, right now, until we have a kid, we're saving up very quickly,
right?
Which is good. But yeah, just picking a mortgage that makes sense. So right now, our combined is 170K.
Okay.
Just me right now, not factoring in promotions and everything, is 115.
115.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. No, that's good. It's good to know and to look at those different numbers, because it changes dramatically in terms of what your comfort zone is. So I mean, ideally, where do you want to try to keep your mortgage payment? It's probably a higher threshold now, but
Yeah. So right now, we're saving a lot of money with uh, paying 1890.
okay.
Right. We have a 2-bed, 2-bath in the Port Hueneme area.
Nice.
Not the best neighbors. Thankfully, I resolved a lot of stuff with them, so that was good. I mean, but we had a little bit of neighbor drama.
Yeah.
Because it's tight quarters here. The wall, it's old construction, so the walls are very, especially to footsteps, which is something that was totally new to me. Basically, this woman built up like 6 months of like animosity towards us just because of how loud we were with like walking around our place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it all just came to a head one day when she saw my wife leaving for work and just cussed her out. And like, so I just had to deal with that. And
Wow.
thankfully it all kind of, resolved this. I talked with her, calmed me down, got an apology. She's gonna be leaving flowers at our front door, for her as an apology to my wife, right? So so we worked it out, right? And we're at peace with them now. But I think definitely that's another factor that we'll be looking at in whatever home we purchase, is just how thick are the walls, like
Right.
am I townhomes can work, but right, if it's like really thin walls,
Right.
the neighbor is very sensitive to noise. We're not that sensitive to noise,
Right.
but it's mostly, is the neighbor sensitive to noise. We don't really have a lot of like parties with like loud music and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's more so like, is the neighbor hypersensitive to noise, is what we realized from this experience.
Oh, it's a great eye opener for sure, especially when you talk about committing an actual property. Even if you were to turn it into a rental after the fact,
Yeah.
it is going to be something that people are going to have to be able to, make. It's part of the decision, of whether that's where you want to stay for the long term or not. So I did show a couple places this weekend, one in Todd Ranch in Ventura. And the cool thing about it is they're upstairs, downstairs townhomes. It's attached. This was an in unit. It was at 439, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with roughly about a $300 HOA. I think for this particular person, they were putting down roughly about 36 or so, and it's all confidential. I'll keep the names confidential, but about 36 down. Their total payment was going to be about $2,800 a month. And that was on an FHA, so that's actually with a higher mortgage insurance, where if you went conventional, it'd be quite a bit less, especially if you had more money that you're putting.
So what's FHA versus
conventional?
Is that federal housing?
Yeah.
What's the A?
So the FHA agency.
Okay.
Yeah. So FHA is typically for borrowers that want to put the least amount of money down, or the highest risk borrowers. So it's a federal backed loan. And again, these are the things that Jason, he can just.
I see. So if my credit score was not the best, right, I could still, get an FHA, for example, potentially.
Right. Or least amount of money down. So if you weren't using a down payment assistance, which it'd be hard for you, you could potentially qualify for some down payment assistance.
I've looked into the ones I think that are around here, and it doesn't seem like I would
Your income's too high for it just being the two of you. Now it's all based on household size, right? But also they have low income, which is 80% AMI, area median income or below, or do moderate income, which they actually bumped those limits up quite a bit. They went up to as high as like 190, I believe it is, 190,000.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's a household size of 4. I don't know what that is for 2 though. But that higher limit went up quite a bit. Now the downside to it is the cost is actually a little bit more. So it costs you more up front to get that assistance. But at the same time, you can finance it into your loan, but the rate's also a little bit higher than if you're looking at FHA loans or conventional. So an FHA rate, interest rate, will typically be the lowest rate that you're going to see. That's where you'll see something, it'll be quoted like in the twos, like 2.7 or 2.8, and you can even buy it down even lower than that. But the thing is you have mortgage insurance on top of that that's higher on FHA. And for FHA, it's for the life of the loan. So the only way you get rid of it, it's not even if you appreciate 20% in terms of value. And this gets back to your question. I'm trying not to.
Yeah. No, this is actually really good between the two, because I've heard them kind of mentioned,
Right.
More haphazardly. So yeah,
it is. So for a lot of buyers, the FHA is the easiest, especially for first purchase. They don't want to put as much money down. It's the least amount of money down, get the lowest interest rate. However, your mortgage insurance is higher. And for them, it was almost $300 a month for that FHA loan for the mortgage insurance. So then you have your HOA on top of it. Even with all that combined, it still came out to about $2,800 a month for that one particular property at a $439 price.
And that sounds promising. Yeah,
that's not bad. And so for that property, it's Todd Ranch, which is it's not East Ventura, but it's more centered to East Ventura. So
is that something I could just look up on just see if I've seen the area?
This one is. I'm trying to remember the address off the top of my head. I think it was like 16.
Oh, that's just general area is good, just for me to kind of.
I believe it's
on
Beagle, though. Beagle.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think the address was.
I was looking at apartments around here at one point too. Yeah.
So it's right over. It's off of if you exited Victoria, and then you turn right on. I think it's. I always get Telegraph. It's one.
I think it's Telephone. Yeah.
Telephone. You take that across. So the courthouse is there. You go right. You go east, and then you go towards, before you get to, there's like a field, like there's like some farming field up there. Right before you get to that, it's on the right side there. And then, so it's that area there. It's a good location. They're called Plain PUD, which is Plain Unit Development. And so that's kind of the downside to FHA as well, is the complex has to be FHA approved. Conventional, you're going to have more to choose from. So conventional will get you into more complexes if you're looking at condos and townhouses. If it's FHA, it's either got to be a detached home, can't have peeling paint. And if it does have peeling paint, it's going to be something that's called out. But if there's some major things that need to be taken care of on the property, they're not going to let you do the loan. So certain homes, they won't let you do that. So that's some of the you got to have somebody who understands the FHA, and a lot of agents don't do the research.
And so with a conventional loan, if I get to the 20%, which I can do the calculations beforehand, how long that would take,
right.
I don't know how long, what's a good rule of thumb? Like if I'm putting down 10%, let's just say, instead of 20.
For conventional, what do you mean? What's
a good rule of thumb before I pay off the 20% and then have no more mortgage insurance?
So basically right now with the conventional, and this is why I wanted Jason on there, because he was telling me rough numbers, and he basically said that for the mortgage insurance on conventional, if you have 10% down, it's like $70 a month. It's not $300 a month. So then what you want to look at is the cost analysis, right? For that $70 a month, yes, you are paying 70. It's like, I got to just pay the 70, but it's so much less that it's actually to try to save that extra money up. And if you could take advantage of the low rate now, where you're trying to save that money up, you're actually going to end up paying a higher interest rate. Yeah, you got rid of mortgage insurance, but your rate went up. So you just countered yourself out. And if anything, it may have got more expensive for you. Does that kind of make sense? So that's kind of the analysis that you want to do. And again, once Jason gets on, he can get into a little bit more of those details. But typically 10% is actually a lot of money down for conventional. A lot of people will try to go as low as 5% down, and then you are going to pay more mortgage insurance if you only have 5%. So the more you put down, the less mortgage insurance that you're going to pay. You'll pay some, but not as much. And then you want to look at that and just kind of balance everything out. And then it comes down to opportunities, comes down to payment comfort zone. All those things that's really when the time is right for you, not trying
for
to
closing costs, a good rule of thumb that I heard before for a 500K house is about 15K, right? So about 100K for the 20% down, and then 15K for closing costs.
Yeah.
So if I put 10% down, let's just say,
Okay.
and add on in closing costs, am I talking about, that's 65K?
Let's just say, so you're talking at which purchase price? Are we talking
So
at?
let's just say house is 500K, just
Okay.
for the sake of these. So 10% down is 50K.
Yep.
Closing costs, just kind of,
Just
if you averaged all of the like inspector fees and all of the different things, I heard a good rule of thumb for 500K is about 15K
that's
closing costs.
yeah, that's
Is
not
that high?
that's probably on the higher side. You're gonna have on 500K, it could be close to it, but what you're also gonna be paying in there, and that's where we break it down. So we talk about the out-of-pocket expenses that come out, like as you mentioned, home inspection, right? All that roughly is going to come out to about $1,000 for your appraisal, for your home inspection. Your appraisal is
Mm-hmm.
going to be about 450 to 600. Your home inspection is going to be about 450 bucks. So you're looking at about 1,000 right there. If say you found a home tomorrow that you wanted to write an offer on, your offer got accepted. Your earnest money deposit, which is usually customarily is about 3% of the price. So if it were 500, that'd be 15K, right? $15,000. That when you deposit that money, you got to make sure you can pay your bills. It goes into an escrow account, not to the seller, and that clears. So that money's it's in that account. That money could either be used towards your money down, your cash to close number, and that's the number you want to get from. That's why I like working with Jason, is because he gives me a snapshot that says, okay, this is your cash to close. So if you said 65, total cash to close all in is 65. Now that's going to give me this payment on this interest rate. This is your principal and interest. This is your taxes and insurance. It's your property tax. He's got it all broken down.
I
So
see. Yeah.
clear for me to see, okay, now if we want to look at a detached home with no HOAs, this is what that payment looks like. If we want to look in River Park with Melrose, this is what that payment looks like, right?
Yeah.
So I can see side by side and know, okay, so at 510,000, this is, I just know it because I was just showing the property this weekend with roughly about 36,000 down, 300, about 310 a month HOA. Total payment came out to almost 3,200 a month. That was at a 510 purchase price with about 36 all in. And that's really the minimum down. That's like 3.5% down. And then also the closing cost included. Now, there are things we can do depending on the situation where sometimes if, and this would have to be sooner than later, because say you say, okay, about 3 months from now, I'm ready to go. Like we know we want to stay here, but we're going to do it about 3 months from now. And that's about your timing. What's going to likely happen in about 3 months from now as they start opening everything up and things get going, because it's already happening. We're already seeing multiple, but it's not crazy multiple offer. So we checked a few places out. I've had the listing agents call me back and say, okay, are you interested? I'll say, do you have anything on the table? No, not yet, but we had 2 showings. Well, once it gets back to where things are kind of more normal again, it's going to be, we got 3 offers in hand. Are you going to submit your highest and best offer? It's a different type of negotiating leverage that then you being the only offer on the table, where now it's like, okay, we wrote full price, but we asked for 10,000 in closing cost help. And so we got a $10,000 credit from the seller. Yeah, you have the cash, but we were able to get 10 from them, right? And typically that's capped at 3% of whatever your loan amount is. So at 500, the most we can get credit is 15K. Well, that becomes an important number because say you got 8 to 10 up front, and then we went in and did our investigation and we negotiated, let's just say another 8, which is high, but let's say we got another 8,000 in request for repairs. And they're like, yep, let's do it. I want to sell my house. I'm moving to Texas. I need to get out of this. Right. And I'm worried about this whole COVID-19 coming back or whatever their fears are. Right. But they're like, I need to get out. I've already bought my other place. Let's just cut our losses. And this literally is the mindset of some sellers right now. And if you were able to do that, now your 18K is over that 15 limit. So 3 would drop off and then all you would get is 15. So what we would want to know ahead of time is we wouldn't want to have any drop off. We'd say, okay, now try to do these in repairs for 3K. Let's get our max amount. And this is where the communication becomes huge between your loan officer and your real estate agent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's one of those things that just, I guess my rule of thumb prior to talking with you last week was I need my bank account to show 115K, before I kind of just engage and look for a home. But, right now it's showing about 62K. So it's like, what to do, like, that's close to the 65 number, which it would be 10% down, 15K closing cost type of thing.
Right.
But I think that at the end of the day is the number that, I'd be looking for out of the loan officer, just going like, okay, straight up, what do I need in my bank,
right,
to do this, because that, and obviously knowing that's an estimate. So even just knowing the wiggle room of this is plus or minus 3K, right now I go, okay, I need 68, in my bank before I'm like, yes,
right.
But yeah, that's comforting to know that, because like essentially I think what you guys said during the workshop is also true, that like no one knows where this is going really.
Right.
There is some optimism starting. I mean, just based on the stock market today, right? There's some optimism.
Yeah.
And so it may be in the long term smart to take advantage of the low interest rates right now, and the fact that people are kind of afraid to show houses right now. So you're not getting, pre-COVID, you're talking so many more offers per house, right? Now, is 100% a seller's market,
Right. And it's also kind of knowing the price points too, right? We know most buyers right now, and Jason was just sharing this with me. He's like, a lot of people have in their mind, I don't want my mortgage to be more than $3,000 a month. And there really isn't a huge difference between $3,000 and $3,100, but it's just psychologically knowing like, no, 3,000 is my cap. That's it. Well, when we know that, we also know how many buyers are looking at specific price points. So that's who you're competing against, right? So that's kind of the threshold. So those are going to be the homes typically, at least if you're competing against a FHA with the bare minimum down, 3.5% down, right? And they're trying to buy, they're trying to stay under roughly about 450 on purchase price, 450,000 with roughly about a $300 to $400 a month HOA. So any property that pops up in that price point typically is gone in pre-COVID, like we talked about. Right now, this one that's on Todd Ranch, or it's in the Todd Ranch complex, that property, it went into escrow, fell out. I checked it out. I guess the owner's been out of it for a few days or not in the property. And when we showed it, they had a cat that's been in there. So you could smell cats there, but also had a nice present in the bathroom. But when you look at the updates of the property, it's a nice property. It's actually got quite a bit done. It's got a 1-car garage and they had a lot of stuff in it, but it's got a carport or a driveway right behind it. So you get the 1-car garage, you get the driveway behind it, and then you get 1 reserve spot right next to it. So you actually have enough for 3 spots there, plus guest parking and other things that are there. It's got a little yard. It's an upstairs, downstairs. You're talking about not having somebody above. Nobody's above you. It's only connected at 1 spot, which is actually on the garage side. And the upstairs is completely not connected to the neighbor. So you can't hear through the walls. So for the entire house, you're not hearing your neighbor. And this is a property that you're gonna, that you own. You're gonna get the appreciation, the tax write-off, all those factors. And literally, you're probably, this is if you were coming in with 36 total on an FHA, which it isn't likely going to be the case. And I didn't ask you about credit. Are you pretty solid in credit?
Yeah, so my credit is 805. I just checked it prior to this.
You're going to get the best in terms of credit, ratings to get the best interest rate, pricing. Everything's going to be the best when you're set up like that. So I do have Jason waiting in the waiting room.
Sure.
Let him in? Okay. He may not be there. He's been there for a couple minutes, but we'll see.
Oh, okay. We may have.
It's all right. I didn't want to.
Along.
Oh, Jason. He's like, hey, how you doing, bud? Can you hear us? Well, it says connecting to audio, so not sure if you can hear us.
Oh, you may need to hit the connect with internet audio button.
Right. Connect with the audio button. There you go. It says connected to audio. You there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How's it going, Jason?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing, Tyler?
So this is. Sorry about that. So everybody can hear each other, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So Jason, so Tyler's Mike Cloud's good friend that I was telling you about. Super awesome, cool guy, and he's just asking some questions. It's a little early on. He's actually going to be finding out in a couple weeks whether he may be going out to Virginia. So I just shared with him, just we're here to answer questions. Really trying to help him with kind of figuring out the payments. We were explaining the difference between FHA and conventional, and also trying to figure out just really with mortgage insurance, you know how that's like a four-letter word, right? Talking about
Right.
mortgage insurance, but just talking about the different times of, you know, is it better now with roughly about, is it okay if I share with them some?
Yeah, absolutely. All those details I figure are good for this conversation.
So yeah, so ballpark right now, we're trying to get kind of rough numbers at about a $500,000 purchase price. I was just sharing with them the Todd Ranch one that we just priced out.
Okay.
Kind of figuring out, you know, that was coming in, you know, minimum FHA, minimum down. I think it was total about 36 cash to close, and the total payment was still around 2,800 a month, right? With their 300-ish HOA there, as well as, you know, I think it was a 439 purchase price. So I guess to get to the first question, what was the first one we wanted to ask them again, Tyler? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so right now I have 60 to 62K in the bank, just ready to go if and when I want to buy a house. You know, as Brandon was probably mentioning, I am figuring out if I'm doing this year-long rotational assignment in Virginia, right? Still not sure on the odds of that happening or not, but I find out more in 2 weeks. Like, in other words, I'll probably know in 2 weeks, right?
Got it.
So this would be in the case where I don't do that and instead want to stop renting and get a house. So essentially right now, me and my wife combined, we make 170. However, in the next 1 to 2 years, we're looking to have a kid. So that affects both the size of the house that we'd be looking for, as well as the fact that, you know, we'd just be on my income, which currently as it stands, not factoring in promotions and things like that, is 115. And I'm trying to think of other details. So yeah, we have 62 in the bank right now, likely 65, 66 by the end of the month. And I'm trying to think of some other things.
If it's okay if I share some of those details?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So he just shared his credit's over 800.
Okay.
Yeah, so awesome credit. Job stability is solid. You've been at the same place now 6 years?
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. And last year you made you said 115, right? Or was it?
Last year it was 106. This year it's 115.
So 106 and 115. So we want to be conservative in terms of what his monthly payment is, you know, just so that when his wife stops working, it's just based off of his income. And do you think 115 is a pretty fair projection for future, Tyler?
I would say in that time frame, just because of what's going on this year, I'm like one of the few people still producing at my pre-COVID levels, so I'm optimistic. But we'll say I'm thinking 120 is probably likely for the time that we're talking about.
Okay.
Do you get a salary or?
So we get performance increases.
Got it.
Right. And so it's a percentage based upon how you perform relative to the peers in your work group.
That's makes sense. That's how it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's government working as so I work for the government. I'm a civilian for the DoD. So actually, this is another kind of data point. Port Hueneme and Point Mugu are kind of the two. Port Hueneme mostly is like where that's where I will be commuting to. And my wife currently commutes to Carpinteria.
Okay.
So obviously in the short term, a place kind of where this Todd Ranch thing is that you were talking about. I mean, that is actually like
work out
the perfect type of location-ish in terms of close to the 101, going both north, and then I can, take Victoria or whatever down to Port Hueneme.
Yeah.
So in other words, there's some things there. Also, the other kind of factor is I do have some family that if there were some sort of investment opportunity. Like I could get more, equity, to do stuff with. However, I'd have to make a good case for it. So like,
Sure.
what one interesting thing one of my friends did, just for some context, was he and his in-laws both went together and purchased a beach home in the Oxnard Shores area. Worked out very well. There's like an upstairs and downstairs type of thing. Well, in other words, if there's a right opportunity, the 500K
Sure.
might not be my
like
max.
if it was like a 2-unit or an in-law suite or something like that.
Yeah,
that you could
in
rent
other
out.
words, there could be some stuff like that, especially just given my mom's current state. It may actually make sense to do something different. But like I said, if it's just for me and my wife, right? It's looking at. I think it'd probably be smart to get a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, right, for the type of family that we'd probably be starting and making in the 5 to 6 year timeline.
Right. And then
and I don't know that something's available in that price point for the I mean, you guys were talking $439 for a 3-bed.
Yeah, that was a
2-bath.
There are, but it depends on the area that you're looking at. And again, first is figuring out where's your comfort zone payment wise, depending with how much money you're putting down. And that's where it's great to have Jason on. And he can also break down the mortgage insurance and explain how that works so that when that could drop off and the difference between conventional and FHA and how those operate. And then I think once you have those details, then we can really start kind of fine tuning, okay, if we're shooting for a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, what price point do we need to be at, to make that happen in the areas that you're interested in? So
and I think that'd be helpful too, because if I find out, for example, 620 is as low as you can go here,
right?
For essentially what I would consider in other areas a single family home. I feel like that gets redefined here, obviously, because housing is so expensive. Right. So single family is just defined as under 500K, right? Whatever you get.
There's some out there.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how much are you paying right now in rent?
So $1,890 right now in rent, and we're able to save about $3 to $4K a month.
Okay. That's pretty. Yeah, that's a good chunk of savings. So that part's good.
But that part changes as soon as she has a child, obviously.
Sure.
Right. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess factoring that in, like, have you guys kind of carved out like what you're comfortable with your payments being, like just with your income?
Well, you were saying 3,000, just all up, HOA, everything. I mean, that's a very comfortable number. Obviously, as it wiggles above that, I'd have to do more in-depth calculations. I could probably get a better estimate. Okay. Just even knowing that that's a data point that would be useful. Prior to this conversation, I didn't really think about that. I mean, that is obviously a good question. I don't know the number right now, but 3,000 seems doable.
Let's work with that just for the sake of conversation.
Yeah. I mean, so I know that's what a lot of people are working with in this price range and things like that, but
seems to be the magic number. Some people want a $2,000 payment, but 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a $2,000 payment, but it's more of a reality check for them, to.
Yeah.
Great. We all do.
Well, I mean, right here, what we have right now is a 2-bed, 2-bath at $1,890, but it's a condo, and we're second floor and surrounded on all sides with other tenants. Right. Walls are very thin. Mainly the floors are very thin.
Right.
And so I was telling Brandon, we had to run in with one of our neighbors because we were walking too loudly for many months.
Oh, geez.
So
you're tiptoeing since then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So based on an 800 credit score with the amount that you have right now, 10% down would require a little bit more cash to close, but at 550,000, your payments are a little under $3,000 a month. That's with the mortgage insurance. the mortgage insurance factor is pretty low with 10% down. It's 0.27. So it's like $100 a month is what the monthly mortgage
Which
insurance
seems
would
very
be.
reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you don't find anything, obviously you keep saving, and eventually, I mean, 3,000 is, it's pretty good, but it's going to take you a little bit of time to save up. The other
Well, what's
10%.
crazy about that to me is that, if I saved up, essentially double what I have now and could afford both the 20% down and the closing costs, I mean, obviously it'd go down because I'd put more equity down, but,
Right.
the mortgage insurance for just $100 a month seems like it adds a lot there. Because it'll probably take me conservatively, I mean, maybe over, let's see, if I'm doing 3 to 4K a month, right, it'd probably take me 1.5 to 2 years, of this to save up double what I have.
Yeah. And right. We don't really know what
assuming no stock returns.
Right.
Which is probably about right during this time. Right. I have a lot of gold, so
that's a good place. I feel comfortable in gold right now. I'm a little wary of the stock. I was looking at the stock market. I was just like, I think I'm selling it all. Like, I don't see why the stock market's so high right now. I'm a bond market.
It's interesting. I mean, there's definitely some optimism. There was that really good vaccine study that popped up recently, which is what happened today. But I'm with Brandon just in like, I'm cautiously optimistic, right? I mean, I feel like things are opening up a little bit. But I was walking downtown Ventura, and I'm like, all these shuttered places, right? And literally, it's like they're still paying their mortgage.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, like my dad owns the land where Big O Tire is in Vegas, right? And they're still deemed essential, but they asked him if they could get a 4-month abatement on the rent.
Wow.
Right? It's like no. You guys are still operating, right? And apparently that's one of the best one of the best performing tire shops in Vegas right now. I mean, a lot of stuff's doing very poorly right now.
Right.
As you guys can probably imagine, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I mean,
said,
as far as saving, like we don't know for sure, but it seems like right now, at least real estate. Initially, I thought, hey, we're entering into a buyer's market. There's just no way that values are going to hold. But in this price point, there's a lot of people coming out, and right now, at least the forecast is that we're looking in Brandon. I don't know if you have other sources, but in Ventura County, Southern California, we're looking about a 5 to 7% year-over-year appreciation rate. So it's good that you're saving a lot because you're kind of keeping up with that, but it's also kind of a moving target as far as how much money you'll end up needing to have. And so
they're actually predicting right now 5 to 7% appreciation
year-over-year
actually
right now.
I'm guessing that's a year-long metric.
Right. Yeah, year-over-year. So you throw that into the numbers and the equations, and the cost of waiting just doesn't make sense to wait if values are appreciating. Now, if something were to change and we enter into some sort of like, as the economy opens up, and then all of a sudden the cases, we bombard the healthcare system, and it's great that we have this, 70 people or whatever they tested that had good results. It's going to take years before this vaccine is like everyone's getting vaccinated, and we still don't know if it's going to be like the flu where it's going to change seasonally. And
I mean, no one knows is the bottom line.
Right.
I mean, people have some educated guesses, but they're all over the map.
That could change. We don't have a crystal ball, but as of right now, it kind of, to me, like sometimes I wonder, is this thing a hoax? Like, I don't see anyone that's really, knock on wood. I mean, I hear of horrible things. I just don't know anyone personally.
Right.
That's really affected by all this. But in any case, you kind of factor that in. I would say be cautious on waiting by saving up. I wouldn't allow that to be a reason not to buy. I think the most important thing, what I tell everyone, is you need to really identify what works for you and your family, not just today, but the future, because buying a home is more of a long-term commitment. And so we could.
I just have one other thing. So as far as factors for a house, really quick, just before I forget this little nugget.
Sure.
So I know Tabitha has seen, the stuff in the collection, and like everything's updated, and
Right.
Right.
to that level, right? I know that in particular, just the bathroom being nice is going to be up on her list.
Yep.
Specifically, if it has a large tub, she's going to really like that.
Cool.
And just if it's like something we could totally update, like the kitchen, and things like that. But if it's already updated, I know that that's like one of the first things homeowners update right before selling a home to like increase its value. In other words, having a nice kitchen and nice bathrooms
Absolutely
is a nice thing in terms of what she would be like. That it wouldn't sell me necessarily, right? Walking in, I'd probably be looking at other factors, but for her, like if it has a nice bathrooms and nice kitchen, that would, those are like her main two requirements, I would say.
And Jason and I have helped quite a few people who have actually purchased in River Park in the collection area. That's the hot area right now. You have the Melrose. So Jason,
the Melrose does suck.
Yeah. What is the price point we're looking at if he's staying at the same $3,000 a month payment? Just rough numbers. I know it's remember the one I sent you at $450? It was listed at $450. I can probably find the sheet to see what the Melrose was. But do you know ballpark what that one is with the HOA? And the HOA was a little bit lower on that one too. Let me see if I got the price sheet on it real quick.
Yeah, it's right around, with 10% down, it should be right around,
and then also
3,000.
What was that? I'm sorry.
450. I don't recall the HOA, but I think it was like in the low twos, like 225 or so.
Yeah, I think I have your actual pricing sheet of it somewhere. That's what I'm trying to look for. See if I can find it. This is on a different one.
Did I text it to you?
I still got it. So at a $449 purchase price, and this one did have their Melrose. Well, anyway, it's total payment on $449, but this was less money down. They only had $35 to put down. Total payment was $3,106.
What is the even with the Melrose?
With Melrose, with HOAs, with property taxes, principals, interest, everything was $3,106 at a $449.9 purchase price. And that's this is an FHA loan, so the rate interest rate's a little bit lower, but you have a higher mortgage insurance on this one. So
what's the property taxes? The total taxes on that?
Total on this one. Let's see. We got Ventura Road. Payments, balance out, FHA. No, this was your response to it. I know I wrote it.
Do I give a breakdown of the payment or just the...
Yeah, no, you give a breakdown. You put, for property taxes, you put $776. That's everything. So that's Melrose.
Okay. Yeah, I estimated 2.1. I have 788 right now in here. So how much is the HOA?
HOA for that one is 185. So it's a pretty low HOA.
That's for both HOAs?
Yeah, usually they got two. I think it was a little bit lower. Let me see if I find the actual sheet. But says, can you give us with HOA Melrose? Okay, so the Melrose on it's right under 4K, $3,955.82. This is 3150 North Ventura Road, in Oxnard. HOA, yeah, it's got two, 75 and 115. So it's lower on the HOA side.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this one's pretty good too. It's similar to the one we sold Charlotte, but a little bit bigger square footage. So I want to say it's about 1,500 square feet. I believe it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yeah, it's, the 4 bedrooms, they start jumping up a little bit more, especially in the bigger part. You start pricing over 500,000. Sometimes you can get them in the high 4s, but usually, kind of quick rule of thumb, and this isn't exact, it's almost $100,000 difference. So just like he said,
between 3 and 4.
Well, just so no, not the 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is usually about a $50K difference, is what I see in a lot of areas.
Between 3 and 4 bedroom.
Bedroom.
Oh, bedroom.
What I meant for Melrose River Park, if you can do 550, normally the same payment is almost at 450 with Melrose, HOA, everything else that's included. So
that makes sense.
That kind of gives you a good rough number. But can you do the cash to close ballpark at 10% down, 550, or you could even do it on this one, so we're not jumping around too much. But what is the closing cost estimate? That was the number we were trying to figure out.
So the total cash to close would be about 58,000.
58.
And yeah, payment would be about 3,000, a little under 3,000 at 450 with 185 HOA dues.
Okay, 185. So it's a little under 3,000 for that one at 449. See, and this is why this is key, Tyler, to have Jason on this call, because you can see already it's like, wow, we're already closer than we realized, you know what I mean, right now today, just based on what this situation is. So that's why these numbers are key.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of the other area, these are things that this past week, I've talked with my wife a little bit about it and just kind of like what, she'd be looking for in a home. So obviously we're going to have kids. So just having room for that.
Right.
Debatably, the 3-bed might work. I mean, we'd have to really think about that hard. Right. But 4 bedrooms, obviously ideal. The other one, and I don't know if these homes ever fall within our range, but 2 of the areas that I know that obviously everyone loves, but there's Oxnard Shores. Right. I don't know if things ever open up in kind of the 550 to even 6. Like I said, I mean, depending on the property, I might be able to get some outside, or rather family assistance, to kind of meet that. It'd have to be like dream home, threshold to kind of get additional. But so Oxnard Shores, or is it called Marina Park? Just that entire area, kind of by Pierpont Bay, all of that, but that's basically more north, but very close to the 101. I don't know if homes there ever kind of fall into the, the reachable range, but
Jason, from what you see, I kind of know the answer on the Oxnard Shores. What would you say for the Pierpont Bay, Marina Park, that area?
Help me out with Pierpont Bay. I live in Via Marina, Via Marina track on the other side of, over by where Yolanda's is at, by Seabridge.
What you're referring to, or which cross streets are you?
I guess Harbor and Seaward, for example.
Up in Ventura.
Yeah, okay. kind of like that area.
So in the actual
is another area that so my wife actually lived in one of the rooms right before we got married. She lived actually with this basically a surrogate grandmother there, anyway, the home must have been worth like 1.2 million or so.
Right.
But obviously the area is very nice. But I don't know if any of those, anywhere around there, ever falls within kind of reach of more reasonable.
Yeah, not typically under 6 from what I've seen. And Jason, if you've seen anything else, please correct me. What I do know with Oxnard Shores, because I ran it for somebody that was looking at investment properties, I did see a duplex pop up in Oxnard Shores at $800K. And it was a fixer, a big fixer, but you had 2 rentable units, or you live in one, rent the other one out. And I'm trying to think if it was an upstairs, downstairs, because my wife also, when we first started dating, ironically, was over by Pierpont in that area in Ventura, and they were living on the upstairs, and then the downstairs is where the owners live. And then eventually they wanted to sell it, so they tried to bump the rent out, and then my wife had to move out of the place. Well, girlfriend at the time, but she was living in that area. It's an awesome area. But yeah, it's to try to get it around 6. It's just it's not likely.
But you're saying duplexes might pop up.
In the there was only one, and it was amazing. Yeah. It was a fixer. It wasn't like your dream home move in ready to go. If you're getting those types of rental properties, especially the closer you get to the beach, you're jumping up over $1 million quick.
Yeah.
On certain ones, I remember checking one out that was at like 1.4 million, and it had 3 different levels that you could rent out. And it was awesome. It's steps away from the beach. It wasn't actually on the beach, but it was literally steps away, right on that.
Wow. Yeah.
But it starts jumping quick. But you never know. You can come across something. Keep your eyes open.
Yeah, those so. In other words, let's just say that 800K, maybe a little bit less of a fixer-upper. I know my dad is really hesitant with those, but bottom line, let's just imagine, for sake of argument, an 800K duplex pops up. maybe a really good rental property where like I could live in one part with my wife, kind of have her home, start up there, rent out the other part. I could see some of my family, being interested in, providing some capital to make that happen, right? So just throwing that out there as like, ideally for us alone, it would be, in that 550 range. It sounds like makes a lot of sense. I just, just for sake of argument or just kind of throwing it out there is kind of that potential, for things that make sense and would have kind of that rental aspect to it.
Right.
There's the Dunes is probably the most affordable. I don't know if it's still kind of part of your criteria, because it is on the other side of harbor. So I'm not sure if you're trying to stay more on like the actual shores, or if you're willing to cross harbor essentially and then walk through, ride your bike, walk or drive to the beach. But the Dunes is a little bit more affordable.
How would I find that, just to kind of find that area on Zillow, for instance, just to kind of see what's
so it's
rough,
Bully and
I know Zillow's not like really representative of anything, but
right. Well, and I'm gonna set you up too on some searches now that we got a ballpark idea of what range you're looking at in the areas, and I'll send you some broad searches, and you'll be able to see everything real time that's on the market, as well as anything that hits or any price reductions that come up in the near future. And you're going to see more, you're going to see more price reductions or opportunities from what Jason has shared with me. Typically, the high balance loans, those start getting more difficult. So that's around 6. Where would you say that starts at for most?
So if your loan is going to be under at 510 or lower, you're going to get really good pricing. A lot of lenders are not being very aggressive on the high balance, which would be any loan above the 510. So that's why in the price range that we were initially discussing, really anything under 600,000, it's going to remain pretty competitive. And every year the conforming loan limits go up. And I think eventually we're going to see, especially if, the unemployment numbers start going down, and we're going to see a lot of the reasons why lenders are concerned about being aggressive on high pricing start to dissipate, and therefore the aggressiveness will return. But at least for right now, there's not a lot of lenders that have a huge appetite for pricing as competitive in the high balance range above the 510. So really price points.
So you mean right now, so just to make sure I understand that. So in other words, right now is not necessarily the best time to get things over 510K.
No, it's the opposite, actually.
Oh, it's the opposite. So
because there's less competition. Yeah, because buyers are scared, or a little bit more concerned, because every lender they talk to is quoting them a higher rate and or higher cost. Rate and costs are interchangeable. You could pay more cost to get a lower rate, lower payment, and vice versa. You can go with a higher rate to pay less costs. And so the private loans, like the jumbo loans, are essentially gone. The banks are the only ones in town that have any capital to work with, and they don't have much of an appetite right now. They have a lot of restrictions on who they're willing to lend their money to. Chase needs a 700 credit score now. Bank of America needs a 720, and then they have extra asset requirements for those higher price loans. So they're being very picky. So that's causing some, ultimately some liquidity concerns as it relates to leveraging and borrowing money from a loan standpoint. So there's not as many buyers out there that can buy. And when you have less buyers, that means that it's more of a buyer's market.
More negotiation opportunity.
That makes sense. So actually going above the 510 would give me some leverage, just in terms of there's less competition, there's less people qualifying for those loans.
Yeah, so everyone wants that 3,000 payment.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. And that's, to be clear, it's the 510 loan amount, right? So if you're coming in with 50 to 60K and you're looking at a 550 price, right? You're still considered the conforming loan.
Right.
It's a high balance loan. So now if we're talking, you're coming in with 50 to 60 and you're going for a 520 loan, right? So now it's a 620 purchase price. Now you're in the high balance area. So that 6 and up, really it's between 6 and 7. That's where I'm saying you want to watch those price reductions, because it's more difficult for a buyer to try to buy in that price point there between 6 and 7. You got more kind of wiggle room. Everybody's looking under 600K. That's where the competition's at. So that's why, just to be clear, because I could, when I was hearing you say 510, it's not 510 price, it's 510 loan amount. And then based on how much money you're putting down, that's actually the price, right? So 550, you're still in that sweet spot in the sense that you're going to get the best rates, cheapest cost, lowest payment. That's all under 550. But once you start going higher than that and your loan amount goes higher than 510, the cost goes up. But there's less people you're competing with because they can't afford that. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah. And so, based off of that then, right, if I have 60K right now, 510 is a sweet spot. I want to get into, let's just say I wanted to compete in the 600K type of realm. I would need to get somewhere on, I have 60K in the bank right now. I'd essentially want around 30K from, for example, family, to bump me up, still have that 510 loan.
Yep.
Right. But reach that 600K perhaps.
Right.
And then compete for some of those type of things.
Exactly. And that's
okay. That's interesting. I mean, in other words, if opportunities pop up like that, I can, that I can figure out a way to, make it mutually beneficial. Right.
Well, and there are some good opportunities out already. Even when Jason mentioned 550 still being kind of in your comfort zone, at least a 3,000 month payment, there's a lot more to look at up to 550. Now, if you're going for nice kitchen, nice bathrooms, nice location, really River Park's gonna be your best spot just right out the gate. But there are other areas. There's like Victoria Estates, but it starts jumping in price. You start getting to that 700, 800 price point range where it's all ready to move in. Beautiful. These are big, beautiful detached homes. But now if you're going to townhouses, nicer kitchens, things like that. Lighthouse is a really nice one. That's off of Ventura Road between I think it's like 7th and 9th Street. Right in that area, it's a gated community. Those are nicer, and they're in the more affordable price point in the 400 to 500 range with a low HOA. You got a 2-car garage, and they're newer. So there's a little, like when about little sections like that in different parts of North Oxnard, close to the freeway, that type of thing, you're going to find some nice spots. And they're not on top of each other. They're more the townhouse style, upstairs, downstairs. If you get an in-unit, it's only one connected wall. And a lot of times they try to build it with quite a bit of space in between the two units. So it's not just that single wall that you can hear what the conversation is next door or below you or above you,
Well,
yeah, and I think with this information, Roy, where I'm at is obviously in 2 weeks when I have more clarity on where I'm at. In this time, I'm probably going to be looking at these areas, just re-listening to parts of this Zoom call and just going, okay, let me check out the dunes. Let me kind of get familiar with these, I don't know if that area is called Lighthouse, but, just kind of get more familiar with the type of houses there. Show my wife the pictures, right? I mean, that's what's going to sell her every time, right? It's like, okay, the bathroom, how does that look? The kitchen, how does that look?
Right.
And,
there's an active listing.
Kind of just get more familiar with all of this on my end so that in 2 weeks, let's just say I stay and I want to get a place, I already kind of know what we're dealing with, you know what I mean? And kind of did some of the legwork with the wife, because at the end of the day, if this isn't like something she's excited to move into,
right?
She is getting frustrated with California, just from a political standpoint.
Absolutely.
And so in other words, having a good, like if I can help her understand that this is a great opportunity,
right?
That's at the end of the day what I have to, convince her is that like, oh wow, I mean, like we're never gonna find this type of deal, at another time, or I mean, I'm gonna have to stop it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where we're here to help in any way that we can. And again, it's not just about. There's many factors of why people are moving out of state, right? And reason why people have been frustrated. So it's got to make sense, and you got to feel comfortable with it. But if you can see the opportunity, I mean, really the biggest thing is the interest rate. That's the interest rate with the appreciation potential here in Southern California. That's where it is a long-term investment. So if you can make this work out where no matter what happens to you, your job, whatever, if you had to, just say find another place, you could rent your property out. And if you can make it where you have enough money down where your rental is higher than what your mortgage payment is, you guys are good no matter what. I know, Jason had shared with me, that he had a property. You were paying a decent amount, extra out of pocket to keep that place, right, Jason?
Tafrel?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I was paying like, what was I was renting it out for $2,150 and my mortgage payment was $2,500.
Yeah.
Almost $2,500.
But you did pretty good at the end of that though, right?
Yeah, because the interest rate was low, so a lot of the payment, even though it was money out of pocket, I was paying down the principal. So I was building equity in that regard. It's basically like a savings vehicle, just throwing money into the savings. I bought that house at the wrong time. And so over the 10 years, I bought it at the peak of the market, but over 10 years, the values came up, and over 10 years of making the payments, I ended up getting a loan modification and a lower interest rate. So that helped, so I got my down payment back and other money, and, it worked out. Looking back, of course, I wouldn't have bought when I did. I would have waited 2 years, but no one knew that the housing market was going to collapse. It wasn't looking healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, who predicted 2008, right? A few people.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no,
that's why it happened.
We were young in the business at the time, and that's where our approach has changed, though. And back then, everybody kind of wanted to get their foot in the door on a property, make some equity, try to sell it, and then buy something bigger and kind of keep moving money that way. But as Jason said, even though it was purchased at the higher part of the market, I did the same thing with my property too. The first place that I bought was a entry-level property. I figured, I'd be there for 2 years, make some equity, and it jumped quick. We would have made about 100, 150 or so in about a year and a half. And but I didn't want to pay capital gains. It wasn't 2 years yet, and I was like, I'm not paying capital gains. Then the market shifts, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I should have paid that capital gains, But we wrote it for the long run, and it took a while to get back. But we also modified the loan. So there's things that come into place, and that's where it's like, I don't want to tell people, hey, government's going to bail you out. You're going to be fine. Just go ahead and buy the place. They're going to get you out of this jam. You don't want to bank on that. Make sure you name it, right? Make sure.
Well, and in the books that I've read, kind of just about property ownership and things like that, they always talk about the positive cash flow, and what you were talking about, Jason, where it's like, oh, ideally you run all the numbers and you could rent the place out for more than your mortgage.
Right.
As I've looked at kind of California, properties, it just feels like none of them will ever beat that. You're going to be paying $3,000 in mortgage and being able to rent it out, at 21, right? Because that's what people.
Well, not
in that area. Oftentimes.
River Park, though. You're going to get, if you have that, let's just say that 1,500 square foot property, 3 bedrooms, you're going to get minimum 26 to 28 in rent right now. And that's not far fetched. That was an upstairs unit. We were getting about 26. My brother's place, we got $2,650 for his 1,200 square foot home in Camarillo, Mission Oaks, attached.
Wow,
Looks like duplex style, built in 1978. We got $2,650 quick. Now, I'm not saying to go crazy in terms of it. And Jason and I have talked about Oxnard and kind of the difference in renting properties in Oxnard. But River Park's on another scale than the rest of Oxnard in terms.
And I think that would help me. Just once again, I'm not hiding anything, So, but it's just so you guys know, if I'm able to have that kind of trump card in there too, where it's like, Tabitha, if we don't like living here in the next 3-4 years and we want to move somewhere else, I can rent this place out at a not necessarily even at a profit, but if I'm paying something like Jason was, where it's like, 300 to 400, and it's rented out, and it's effectively a savings vehicle, like you were saying. I could convince her, of things like that, but yeah, like the more that's like, this is tying us to California permanently.
Right.
I think that's definitely going to change her calculation. I think she likes it in the short term. And we may even end up staying here long term. But if I told her, hey, we're locking in for the next 30 years here, we're never going to move. Like that's probably not a situation I can sell her,
Yeah.
So when you initially buy, generally speaking, you need 20, 25% down. And with today's market rents as well as today's market interest rates, for the property to break even, typically, if you could do it with 20% down, you're getting a pretty good deal on that property. And I think what Brandon was saying, you do get a little bit more bang for your buck in River Park. The rents are high. There's a little bit more demand. And there's not as many people that want to buy over there, mainly because of Melrose extra taxes. Everyone around here is getting fed up with California. Why? A lot of it having to do with politics and taxes, right? They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, because of that, and it's the location, and, it's nice. A lot of people like that, the vibe that you get over there, especially the millennial generation. So it's kind of the up and coming place. I really think, not to like try to steer you in that direction. Personally, I'm biased. I live over by the harbor.
I lived at River Park for 2 years, and I loved it.
Yeah.
The rent at those apartment complexes every year, though, it was like, we're raising your rent by $200.
Exactly, and that's
it's like,
that's what I want to. That's what I was getting to. My point is, when you buy, you're fixing your payment, so you're taking control of that payment. So even though initially you might need 20% in River Park, maybe 25, you're fixing that payment. So in time, you could apply to have that $100 mortgage insurance removed after 2 years once the values have gone up enough and you have enough equity. Or if rates go even historically lower, I mean, I'm almost rolling my eyes thinking, how is that possible? But I'm surprised that rates got as low as they did again. So you never know. But you'll likely, refinance and lower those payments, or at least remove the mortgage insurance. And the one thing that will happen is rents will go up. We know that. We know rents will go up. And so over time, there'll be a better cash flow opportunity as we see more and more inflation. And, we just literally printed a crap ton of money that's being circulated through.
Yeah.
So inflation is something we can count on.
Is paying off, right? Because everyone's like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do this forever, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, all this is great. I mean, it's interesting. When I first kind of thought about buying a home, even a year ago, and was like, I need to save, right? I was looking at the River Park area. I love the construction of it. Melrose always was like, man, I just don't want to pay that though,
Right.
But if I'm able to get it around the, the 3K-ish range, and it's a good rental property, I'm able to get, 26 or 25 renting it out, that's going to help me sell it to the wife, right? Frankly, and go, hey, worst case, we move. River Park's an up and coming area, people always want to live there, and then we could rent it out, So all those things will factor in, because like I said, I'm not going to be able to convince her to live here for 30 years if I say that straight out. But, it's like, it's just having that. Those are the things that are kind of running through my mind, and then probably will run through her mind. So River Park meets the kitchen and bathroom thing.
Right.
Out the wazoo. Curb appeal is usually really good out there, and then
that's great. So I'm gonna I'll start setting you up on some searches. They're gonna be pretty broad searches, so you're gonna see a lot, but I don't want you to miss anything, and then if you see other stuff on Zillow or other sites, just shoot me a text and I can check into it to see, number one, if it's truly available, it's an actual listing that is available, and then kind of what the situation is. But typically we don't really start, like, once you get to where it's like, okay, well, number one, you find out what the word is, whether you're going to Virginia or here. If you say that you are going to be here and that you want to at least start looking and kind of seeing, then you want to have a conversation with Jason, and you've done most of the numbers. Oh, the other thing we didn't share is you have no debt, right? Your debt.
No debt.
Yeah, zero debt. So your debt to income is going to be on point. You have all the boxes checked in terms of being ready now, which is great. That puts you in a very powerful position, because a lot of people aren't ready right now. A lot of people are unsure of their jobs, and they're in that. So if you can do that before everybody else does, you're going to see what I'm talking about. It's going to pay off for you big, and you're going to be able to negotiate some terms and some opportunities that will get you to be able to ask for a little bit more, whether it's credits through the transactions, get some repairs. But once it flips back to what it was pre-COVID, right? It's all sellers leverage. They're not fixing anything. It's an as-is sale, and you're probably paying at asking or higher than asking price, which you still may. Like this River Park one at 450, it's going to go at asking price. I guarantee it's going at asking. May go a little bit higher, but the appraisals will still keep it in check. It's not going to go stupid over. Well, once it goes back to the high crazy, all the buyers, we're good. Let's write offer. Now they're going to say, hey, remove your appraisal contingency. Come out of pocket the cash. Oh, you got 60 in the bank. Well, if it appraises at 350 and you wrote 370, we want 370. So you need to come in with that extra 20K. That's how the terms start changing, where you don't have that right now. If you did that now and the appraisal came in lower, it's like, we're not paying more than 350. That's what it appraised at. That $20,000 difference. Yeah, we said 370, but we want, or 470, we want it to drop that 20K, right? We want it because that's where the appraisal. That's the difference in negotiating, literally, I would say, of the next few weeks to next months, depending on when people start kind of catching on to this. But there's some busy agents, I mean, just within my family and our small little company, along with the other agents that still kind of report to me, you know what I mean, of what they're doing out there. So that's kind of, does that help some, just to kind of
that does. And like I said, 2 weeks I'll have a lot more clarity. I'll probably be at a point where I can go, hey guys, I'm serious about buying a home, I'm staying here, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I'm going to Virginia for a year, I'll probably hit you guys up in a year when I'm back. So I mean, that's essentially the inflection point I'm at right now.
Cool.
Thankfully, my landlady that I have right now, if I'm legitimately looking for a home, I can extend it into a month-to-month lease.
Okay.
Because it ends in July.
Okay.
So in other words, I can buy myself a few months if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need the next 3 months to find this house.
Nice.
So in other words, if I stay, as long as I can find a place that I can rent out if we move, and I don't have to sell it to my wife as like we're living here for the next 30 years, right? The bathrooms and the kitchen looks good. Location, River Park, that would actually be good for both of our jobs right now. So, in other words, River Park does tick a lot of the boxes.
Okay.
That's why I got. Is there more information you guys need from me? I felt like this conversation was very helpful for me to understand.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. Jason, anything you need on, I mean, I know we just talked numbers. You need to verify everything, to be able to say, hey, you're ready to go at this payment. What does that entail? I guess just to share it with them, if it comes to the point where he wants to take next steps and make sure that he's ready to go. What does that look like?
So really the next steps to have to be formally pre-approved would just be taking the application, running credit, verifying the income, the assets. We could just do the application in your name only. It sounds like there's more than enough. You guys sound pretty conservative on your payment, where you want your payments to be. Just with your income alone, I could probably qualify you for like a $700,000 house, but then it's coming along with a $4,000 payment. So
yeah,
probably don't want that. But yeah, I mean, if you guys both want to be on the loan, that's entirely up to you. And then again, just verifying the income, the assets. I know right now, especially, I know Brandon was one of the many agents that have let me know if you're going to want to start looking at properties. A lot of the listing agents are calling, they want the pre-approval letter, and a lot of times they're calling me, asking questions to make sure that you're fully vetted out, that you still have your job, all that stuff. Because kind of going back to what Brandon said, because of your job, that's a huge token. Like if you are writing an offer where, Brandon could basically say, hey, look, Tyler works for the DOD, his job is secure as secure as any job.
That's the most important question right now from a good listing agent, is screening the buyers that are coming through. And people are still being careful with the COVID-19. So they want to see an up-to-date, not a pre-approval from 2 months ago, but one that was done like today or this week. So that's where it's nice when I have Jason on hand and he checks everything off, and you submit your application, he looks at it and he's like, all right, you're solid. Here's your pre-approval. Now, at any point in time, if we want to go see something, I got it on hand, or I can call Jason up. Hey, Jason, we need one for this amount, right? Send us one. He sends it over to me. Then the P form is a PEAE form. That's a COVID form now for just entry, just saying, hey, I'm aware that COVID's deadly, right? And that I'm taking that chance going into this property. But they have rules that 2 in the same household can see it with their agent. But if the property is occupied, they can't be in the house at the same time. You got to wear the mask and the gloves. but we're at least able to see properties right now, which is
Oh
nice.
yeah, and we're used to that. So thankfully, both me and Tabitha, my wife, both have jobs that are stable.
Okay.
Right now, she works for Agilent, which they've already announced their kind of policy. They're lowering the bonuses, but they didn't fire anyone, and all the salaries are not cut, so it's great. So in other words, I'd take it on advisement if I should do both or just me for in terms of that. I mean, we're married, so in other words, I have no, like, whichever one's tactically more advantageous.
She's getting half regardless, right? As a property state, she's getting half whether she's on the
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you go, right?
Yeah, like most people would just have one app. Like if you guys both, either one would make enough money to qualify. Usually what I would do is just have one person on the loan, and then both go on title. It just keeps it simple.
It just keeps it simple. I mean, if it makes it where we have to provide less documentation, that's always good. But yeah, I mean, if it gets us into any better state, if we're also able to prove she's in a stable job, that type of thing, we can do that too. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome. I think was this helpful to you, Tyler?
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, there's probably multiple times in the future that I may be reaching out to you guys if this, if I go to Virginia for a year, right?
Okay.
So, I really want to thank both of you guys for your time. I know, it means a lot to me that you guys took the time. So, I mean, that was good. So thank you both.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate your time as well, just being committed to this, and hope you see kind of our style and our approach of how we kind of attack these things. Once we know what you're trying to accomplish, then we can give you all the tools and our experience, to help you make the best educated decision. And it's not about you just, oh yeah, let's hurry up and get you into a home in River Park or wherever, you got to do it now. It's not about that. When we share that urgency, that's because we're telling you from experience. We go through those tough months where it's just, we're getting our butts kicked on every single transaction, writing offers. And we're pretty, not to pat ourselves on our back, but we're pretty good at what we do. And we'll still have these challenges. And we can get through to the listing agent when we represent our buyers a lot more effectively than most of our competition. And it's still challenging. So when that's the case, then that's a tough market. And we've dealt with that a majority of the time. So it's, I just hope just kind of take it with a grain of salt. We're not telling you, hey, hurry up into this. It's just the urgency of you have some serious kind of aces in the hole right now that you can leverage, so because
we have the uncertainty of COVID right now. It could be we recover in, six-ish months, which is what I think most of the stock market probably believes right now, or the opposite, where like, oh wow, it really is 20% unemployment. This is going to be fundamental damage to it for years and years and years, 10-year Great Recession-ish thing, right? So by that's something to leverage right now, is that uncertainty, right? So
absolutely.
But
but
thank you guys for the time. And obviously hit me up, Brandon, with any of those searches you want to do. I'm not averse to homework. I'm definitely going to do some just to kind of get myself kind of read up on some of these locations I heard about. So
absolutely. And it's and Jason, I mean, like he said, he lives in that beach community there. So even though I ask him quite a bit, and he keeps an eye out for us, for our clients as well, and say, hey, did you see that one on Kelp, or did you see that one over there? And it's like, yeah, cool. Let's check it out. So we work together as a team, just kind of keep an eye to make sure you don't miss any opportunities out there. So between the three of us, you got a lot of area covered there. You know what I mean? So we'll set you up on that.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Cool. Thank you, Tyler. All right. Have a good one, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good. See y'all later.
All right. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.